Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Mic'd Podcast. I'm Mike, a hairdresser of over 20 years. One of the best parts of my job is the conversations that I get to have with all of my clients. We talk about anything and everything and invite you to listen in as we get mic'd up for today's conversation. We have Blaire in the chair today. Blaire helps shine a light on the trans community and talks to me about the struggles that she has faced throughout her life going through transitioning and what brought her to this point in her life. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you for taking some time and being here.
Absolutely.
I want to just kind of, I guess, before we get started, really go down let's go down where our paths cross in life, because I feel like it's been a lot of years since we first met.
Yeah. 2010?
Was it 2010?
2011, something like that.
Yeah. But do you remember coming in to the salon for your interview? What do you remember about it?
I remember coming in and Cynthia had told you or she had spoken on my behalf. And I came in and you actually had to leave and told Cynthia to let you know how it went. It was pretty great.
Oh, shoot.
And then, I started there, I think, a few days later. And I worked at Relic for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, and still, so a little background too, I guess. When I first met you,
Yes.
I knew you as Cam.
Yes.
And you, still, people talk about Cam in the salon as the greatest eyebrow artist of all time.
That's awesome.
And truly, people they still love you, but people would rave about eyebrows. And I've never been one to notice eyebrows, but I remember you taught a class at one point.
Oh, yeah.
And you were shaping this person's eyebrow. Again, never been my thing to look at. You're probably looking at mine going, whew.
No.
But
not at all.
This model that you had, you were shaping, you're it's not quite right. And then you plucked one hair. And it was this just sound of it was perfect. And it was wow. So that I know what people are talking about when they're
Thank you.
He was the best.
I was obsessed, for sure.
But so we met when you came in, you started working there, and it was 3 wonderful years of having you at the salon.
Yeah.
But I want to get into kind of going down your journey in life as to being from where you are when I knew you as Cam to now you've transitioned to be Blaire, which that was
that's my
middle name, right?
Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to go by my middle name, but
really, even as a
kid, yeah. And I was told that it was too girly.
Huh.
And little did we all know. I actually kind of knew. I knew when I was young that I was not like all of the other little boys. There was a point in time where in school, I don't remember what grade I was in. We were just learning to, write stories or whatever. And I got in trouble because the subject was what I'm going to be when I grow up. And I chose that I was going to be a beautiful woman and be Miss America kind of thing. I was going to be a beautiful woman, and I was called into the office, and my parents were alerted and that there was an issue. And my dad was always pretty hard on me, trying to toughen me up. And so there was not a lot of joy in that experience. And I used to always say I was supposed to be born a girl to my mom, to like pretty much anybody that would listen, that I was put in the wrong body.
But you knew that from
Very, very young.
Okay.
And then I kind of killed that part of me and stopped talking about it, because every time I did, I got in trouble.
Now, really quick, because were you raised here in Utah?
No.
Where were you raised?
My father was in the military, so we lived all over the place. Shortly after I was born, we moved to Panama, South America, and we were there until I was about 3, and then we moved back to the United States, to Alabama, and lived in Alabama for quite a while. Then South Carolina. So I spent a lot of time in the South, and the majority of the time I wanted to be around my sister and her friends. And all of my friends were girls, and I didn't really hang out or play with the little boys because we had nothing in common. We had no interest. So I always wanted to dance and do gymnastics and be pretty, and that's not really what all of the little boys wanted to do.
So I mean, because you were saying your dad was hard on you,
Yeah.
or whatever, just growing up, and I mean, being military man, it doesn't. Those are the kinds of things that we always just hear about. Oh, it's
Right.
military man. Like, you got to be the manliest man you can ever be.
Yeah.
Did it, when you were hanging out with your sister's friends or wanting to be a dancer, was that, do you think that for him that was, I don't even know if that's making, did it help soften him a little bit or?
No, I don't think so. My mom was a dancer, and so I just followed my dreams, and he may have been supportive of it, but I was never aware. Not for a long time, not until I became a professional dancer, and then I kind of understood that he was proud of me but would never tell me. In fact, it was Cynthia that told me that my dad would brag about me and all of that, but heaven forbid he'd never say that to my face. I don't want to be unfair to my father. He's an incredible man. He just, we were two very different kinds of people. I was very soft, like my mom, and he is not necessarily the most emotional person. But yeah, he did the best he could with who I was.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like a lot of people, like, my parents, your parents, like they're doing the best based on how they were raised too.
Exactly.
Like, so, I mean, had he been raised in a family, and I don't know what his family is like, but maybe his family was raised that you have to be military, you have to be this, you have to be that.
Yeah.
That a man is this way, a girl. Then
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
the times.
Absolutely.
The one
Definitely
thing I
about
do
the
know
times.
with your dad, and I can agree with Cynthia, your dad loved you
Yeah.
and still loves you.
Yeah. I finally came to realize that. And that was earlier this year. I was having a conversation with him, and I was like, well, you never really liked me. And he said, that's absolutely not true. I've always loved you. I've loved you just as much as I love your siblings, but your mother kind of kept us apart. And I feel like my mom did keep us apart, but in a defensive kind of way, because my father was extremely abusive with me, physically and not mentally, but verbally and that kind of thing. So I kind of grew up thinking that I was his least favorite person in the world. And it was literally until earlier this year that he and I had that conversation. Now that my mom's gone, we have kind of been just the two of us. And I have come to realize that he has always been on my side, that he has always loved me, and I consider him like my best friend now.
That's awesome.
Which, yeah, I never in a million years thought I would say, because I truly had a terrible relationship with my dad growing up. I would say the most hurtful things to him, which was, like, looking back at it, it was so unfair to him. I would tell him that I wished he was dead all the time, which is really, I'm sure, I don't have children, but I can only imagine as a parent, having a child wish you dead could not be easy.
I mean, it's hard when they say hurtful things, but
Yeah.
I think any parent will tell you, like, even when they say it, you look at the context that it's being said in. Again, I mean, you know, as you get older, you become a little wiser to the world. You become a little wiser to what things are being said. So
Yeah.
even when a child says a hurtful thing, my kids have said things to me that have made me be like,
Yeah.
but I know they still love me. And I know that my job is to not worry about what they say, but how I actually treat them and how
Absolutely.
I show up for them. And that's at the end of the day where it matters.
Absolutely. I feel like as people get older, they start to appreciate their parents and what their parents have done for them, what their parents have gone through for them, and just how much support they've actually been to them. Because my father has been, and still is, a huge support in my life. He's always been on my side, and it was only until recently that I recognized that as him actually being on my side. He has become a softer person. He's not as, I guess I would say, angry, but he's an amazing man. And coming from his past, he grew up with two parents that were both alcoholics and extremely abusive, and he was the oldest, so he got the brunt of it. And at one point, after my grandmother and grandfather kind of had separated, my grandfather came over to their house completely drunk, and my grandmother was telling him to get out, and she ended up stabbing him quite a few times, I guess.
Wow.
And he actually didn't die from being stabbed. He died from detoxytremens in the hospital. He had a heart attack from not being able to drink alcohol, I guess. I don't really know how that works exactly, but that was kind of what took him down. So my father has never had a drop of alcohol. I don't think he has. I'm not sure. But he's always been kind of perfect,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And I have been far from that. I was going to raves at a very young age. I was doing all sorts of substances and just... What?
I was gonna say, so like I want to backtrack just a minute, because you were talking about, like, you knew from a really young age that you were in the wrong body.
Yeah.
But at what age did you come out as gay?
I was
first?
14.
You
I
were
was
14.
Yeah.
And so before we get into like the going into the raves and all
dressing
that,
as a woman. Yeah.
So how at that point is that like a big tipping point too between the relationship that you had with your family? Like, was that a big, oh my gosh, like,
Not necessarily. Like, my mom actually ended up coming to 3 raves with me.
really?
Yeah.
Donna?
Yeah.
Wow.
She was pretty rad. Like,
Go Donna.
and I asked her to come to the first rave with me. And at that point, I was like more or less straight edge and wasn't drinking, wasn't smoking, wasn't doing anything, was very like disinterested with that. So I was going to the raves solely to dance.
Okay.
And my mom was a dancer, so I asked her to come. And the first rave that we went to, I was wearing roller skates. It just happened to be at a roller skating rink. And I dressed her up as a Candid raver, which back in the 90s, it was the great big Jenko bell-bottom pant, like huge elephant ear pants is what they called them or whatever.
Okay.
And a little tight shirt and candy bracelets up both arms and a visor and glitter everywhere. And no one realized that she was my mom. They just thought, oh, look, another candy kid, like whatever. She had my little Hello Kitty backpack on and was just boogieing, but she wasn't dancing like everybody else. So people started to notice like, oh, wait, that's not like a young raver. Who is that? And I started telling people like, that's my mom. They're like, you brought your mom to a rave? I'm like, hell yeah. My mom loves to dance. I love to dance. Like I couldn't imagine someone that would appreciate it more. So then after that first rave, I was like, would you go to another one? She was like, absolutely. So by the third rave, that's when she was like, hey, are we gonna go to another rave by chance? I'm like, yeah, do you want to? So that's when, we started glamming up, and my mom is the one that taught me how to do makeup. My mom was a makeup artist.
Your mom was really supportive.
Incredibly supportive.
Like
every step of the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So at this point, going to the raves with your mom, you're what, 15, 14? Still 14,
At
15?
that point, I am like 17, 18.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was, at 17, I was a professional dancer. I was 18. So I was a professional dancer. I had left high school early and finished my education with packets, but joined a professional dance company and started touring and stuff like that. So when I started going to raves again, it really kind of affected my position as a dancer, and I actually ended up losing my contract with the dance company.
Because you were going to raves?
Because I was kind of doing a lot of substances.
Okay.
And
so at that point, you had started with substances?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
I had kind of fallen back into old habits sort of thing. And so I didn't dance for 2 years, which became a really dark time. And that's when I got really into, substances and just kind of lost my way.
Okay.
And still, my mom stayed right there by my side and would, I would come home on acid and hallucinating and go up and lay in bed with my parents because I was so afraid. And she would just talk to me and help me calm down. There was no judgment. It was pretty amazing. I know that very few people would have that opportunity with their parents, but
I was gonna say that's very rare.
Mm-hmm.
But was your father also?
He was just
as supportive in that, or was he more?
I feel like he just kind of was like, what he said to me several times is, you're gonna do what you want to do, and there's nothing anybody else can do about it. So I feel like he didn't necessarily support it, but he wasn't too vocal about disapproval. And I mean, during all of this, my dad and I had this tumultuous relationship. And it got to the point, one time in particular, where I said, I wish you would just die and leave Mom and I the insurance money because we would be better off without you. And he told my mom, I'm never, ever going to reprimand or try and correct Cam again. And so there was a period of time where my dad and I just didn't really talk. We just kind of coexisted, but there was no relationship.
Isn't it crazy though that like you have those experiences with someone and then fast forward to the future,
Right.
and now you're having that, conversation with your dad where you're like, wow, he loves me. He cares about me. And what the perception of the relationship is so different than what was initially thought.
Exactly. And it was all produced in my mind.
I was going to say, because I mean, one of the interactions that I had with your dad, and I remember, like he was, when we had, well, I mean, I'll go, I mean, I guess this jumps back a little bit, or maybe this jumps forward. But it was when you were working at the salon, there was an instance where you were working late one night. The salon that we had at that time had windows all around it. And I'm not
My
going to
station
go
was right in that
crazy
front window
whole
too.
story, but there were people that were watching you close up. And when you went to take the trash out, they jumped you, and for lack of a better term, they beat the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Really awful, horrible. Stomped on your hands, knowing that you worked with your hands. Like it was really bad. Like it was
They
horrible.
busted my face open, which I still have a scar here to remind me. And every time I look at that, it's kind of surreal. Because it feels like it happened to someone else. But then when I see that scar, I'm like, yeah, it did happen to me.
See, I remember because we had done a fundraiser after that for you.
Yeah.
And I remember interacting with your dad at that fundraiser.
Yeah.
And it was almost like as he was talking about what had happened, you could see him just like, I mean, it was like shaking out of rage.
Yeah.
Because he was so not at you,
Right.
at the people that had the ignorance to go and do it. And it was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, as a father, I mean,
A protector.
He was very, very protective of you.
Yeah.
At that, and it was, so that's for me. I always just assumed because I didn't have interaction with him that he was just like, oh, Cam knows he was there for him.
Yeah.
You know?
And the entire time I was kind of oblivious. I mean, I knew that it affected him when I was attacked, but I didn't realize how much.
Well, I remember there was a lot of people like you. I remember having conversations with you and you not thinking that anybody cared.
Yeah.
And the community support that showed up was
Insane.
amazing. Like,
I agree.
I remember one old guy coming into the salon and he knocked on the door, came in and he's like, is this the salon that the person got beat up in the back? And I was like, yeah, I thought he was like mad. He's like, that kind of stuff doesn't happen around here under our watch. And he was just like,
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was
I mean,
fantastic.
Little American Fork, Utah, I did not expect there to be that kind of a support. I did experience a lot of people having rage about it after it happened and being so angry, and like countless friends saying, I'm going to find them and I'm going to hurt them.
yeah.
And that was absolutely the last thing I wanted. I had to let go of my anger towards them. And I was out of work for like 3 months. And I had to do a lot of like, I'm no longer angry. Like, I found that letting go of my anger and finding myself in a space of sympathy made it so much easier for me to let go of my anger, to find the compassion that they have something within them that they see in me, that they have to act out violently. And so everybody that would say, like, I'm going to find them, I'm going to hurt them, I would say, like, don't. Please just let it go. Mm-hmm. The bill has been paid. So they're going to have to live with that forever. And I get to free myself from it. So I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to be upset about it because it kind of made it come flooding back. And I found it easier to just kind of let that baggage go, mm-hmm. lay it down, so that there was more room in my life for love and peace and friendship and all of that. In letting go of that rage and that anger, it freed up space within me. So,
yeah, and I think you did an excellent job showing people, even in a space where there was hate, because that was hateful.
Yeah,
you showed love, you showed care, you showed and I think that truly is, it's amazing.
Yeah,
because most people wouldn't.
Right.
They would feel hate, and I think that says a lot about you.
Thank you.
So,
it was actually the third time it had happened to me in Utah. I had been attacked 2 other times, and the first 2 times I definitely let it affect me in a very, very negative way.
So why do you think on this one, what was it? Was it the amount of people that came to show you that they cared when you felt alone? Was it like, why in this instance did you feel like, you know what, just let him be, let him?
I honestly don't know. I did a lot of praying, I did a lot of meditation, and like this peace came over me when I realized, like, if I carry the hate that they were putting off on me, then they won. And if I am able to just let it go and turn around and show them love, that frees me up. And it can be almost voided, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Instead of carrying their anger and their hatred and their need to lash out, just turning around and turning it into love to kind of transmute it, if that's the right word. I don't really know. I like to use words that sound fancy, but I have no clue what they mean. So
sounds great.
But just kind of make it void all of that anger and that hate by saying, like, you know what, I forgive you. I don't know you, but I forgive you, and I'm sorry that you have so much pain in your heart that you feel like that's the only remedy is to act it out and hurt someone. And I've experienced a lot of anger and hate when I was gay, mm-hmm. and felt a lot of, primarily men, see something within me that made them uncomfortable within themselves, that they felt aggressive or angry or violent towards me. I wasn't hitting on them. It was I had nothing to do with them, but something within them really was triggered by me. And so that was kind of part of my healing process, is I feel bad for them that they hate that part of themselves so much that they had to violently hurt someone else because they can't hurt themselves kind of thing. I don't know exactly how to phrase that.
Well, no, it's them afraid of being who they were.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when they are not getting what they want, they act back in the way that the world, like, gotta be the manly man.
Yes,
gotta be
exactly. And demonstrate to each other how tough they are.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, like I said, it breaks my heart for them that they feel so trapped in society's expectations of them and like standards that they resorted to violence. It makes me sad. And a lot of people, my friends still to this day are like, why didn't you fight back? And I can't honestly answer that exactly why I didn't fight back. All I could think was protect yourself. And so I went fetal. I covered my face because my face hurt. The first thing that happened was getting kicked or hit or something in my face to where it busted my brow bone open. And all I could think was like, protect yourself. And I remember instantly starting to pray, like, Heavenly Father, please make sure that my mom and my dad know how much I love them. And just kind of like going through, I almost felt like I was letting go.
Yeah.
And suddenly it stopped and I wasn't sure what was happening. I thought for a second, like, maybe, okay, I'm dead. I'm no longer here. And that's why it's quiet. That's why it's peaceful. That's why there's not violence anymore. And the only thing I think the only thing I could think of saying was, thank you for not killing me, as they were walking away. I said, thank you. And I don't remember if it was for not killing me. I just said, thank you. And I was obviously in absolute shock. But Flavia was the one that found me. And I can't remember if I said it to Flavia or to Cynthia, but I said, are my eyebrows ruined? Like, did they mess up my eyebrows? Because I know that I'm bleeding. I saw it in the mirror in the bathroom, but it was like there was so much blood I couldn't tell. And I just remember asking someone, like, did they ruin my eyebrows? So even in that moment, I was just not really in touch with reality, I guess. I don't know. It just felt so out of body experience for me.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, Mike here. I just wanted to interrupt this episode and say thank you for listening. And please remember to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media. We need your support to keep these episodes coming. So spread the word, and now back to the conversation.
So do you feel like that, like having experiences like that, I mean, that happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
3 times. Did that, did it make you, how do I word
Callous?
this in a way? Like, I mean, at that point, being an openly gay, did it make you think, I gotta hide this even? Because
Absolutely.
again,
I
from
wouldn't
a
leave my
young
house
age,
for a
you're
while.
like, I'm in the wrong body.
Yes.
Now you're like, you're starting that journey to kind of become who you are.
Yeah.
And you're having these setbacks of like, does it cause you to like revert?
Absolutely.
Or does it push you to go even further and be like, well, you know what?
Yeah.
F you. Like
Yeah. The first 2 times it happened, it absolutely set me back in the sense that I was afraid to leave my house. When I would be out in public with my friends, I was constantly looking behind me. I was looking around me. I would get tremendous anxiety. And I just wouldn't be happy being out in public at all. So I limited where I would go. I also grew a beard. I started wearing hats to cover my brows. I started dressing as manly as I could. and trying to look not gay, not me. And that happened the first 2 times. Like the second time I was attacked, I shut down. I shut down big time and I became very antisocial. So the third time it happened, I feel like it was, in a weird way, liberating. Like it was a blessing in disguise because I didn't die. And if I didn't die at that point and I no longer had anything to fear, then screw it. I'm just going to be me and like love it or leave it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, turn away. Don't look at me. I don't care anymore. I'm not doing this for all of you anymore.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for me now. And that was a big shift for me.
Because I was going to say, at what point, because, now we'll fast forward just a little bit more, because I think it was after that, it was about a year or so, and then your time at Relic was done.
Yeah.
And you'd left, moved on. At what point did you start to say, you know what, I'm not going to be gay. Because I want to make sure I say the right, what are the right terms to like, so you go from gay to transition to, is that, how do you describe?
I don't even know.
Okay.
So I considered myself gay because I was attracted to men, and a man attracted to a man means you're homosexual.
Okay.
Feeling like I'm in the wrong body and truly more or less having a woman's brain in this body is confusing. So I don't know. I wouldn't say that I'm heterosexual, but I don't feel like I'm gay in those terms.
Okay.
I'm still attracted to men, but I'm not attracted to gay men, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I'm attracted to people for who they are.
Okay.
I'm attracted to people's their inner beings, because I have fallen in love with women before, but I couldn't take it any further than just love and friendship because I had no interest in being physical with them.
But so I guess too, from going from where you're, reverting, growing a beard, trying to be as manly as you are, to then, you know what? Here I am, world.
Yeah.
I am Blaire. Look at me, because you're beautiful.
Thank you.
How do you go from I'm gonna hide or not hide, but
no, it was hiding.
Hide back who I am because of all this stuff that had happened, to, you know what? This is me.
Yeah.
And deal with it. Tell me that. How does that happen? Or what's that story?
I even when I was at Relic and Caitlyn Jenner finally came out as trans, Cynthia was like, hey, what do you think of this? How do you feel? Because I feel like Cynthia had an insight on who I was, on who I am.
Cynthia's very good at reading
who
people are.
Extremely good at that. And at that point, I was almost upset that Caitlyn Jenner could do it, but I couldn't. Okay. And after that, it took me something like 10 years or so, maybe not 10 years, but a long time to say, I'm the only one that's going to be with me 100% of the time. So I get to start living for me. I get to start feeling comfortable in my own skin, because the majority of my life, up until a few years ago, I always hated myself. I hated myself. I hated the way I looked. I hated the way the world perceived me. And I wasn't even interested in living anymore, honestly. At that point, I was feeling like I'd rather be dead than finish out this life this way. And I talked to my mom about it first and said, I'm going to start taking hormones. I'm going to start transitioning. And she, once again, supported me. She said that she would love me no matter what I looked like or anything, because I'm still me. And I have had a lot of my friends say, like, you're still exactly who you are. You may look a little different, but you're still you.
Yep.
And I feel like I was the only one holding myself back. I was the only one saying, I can't do this. And now that I have begun my transition, I have a peace in my life that I have not ever had. I'm not nearly as angry as I used to be. I don't really road rage. And I do feel like a lot of that came from the hormone replacement. I feel like for me personally, the testosterone in my body was almost like poisonous or toxic or whatever, because I was not able to be myself or like clearly exude who I was. I don't know exactly how to say that, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like me. I felt like I was playing a part until I finally began to transition. And I finally felt like me. It was like walking out from under this heavy blanket and seeing so many new, more important things in my life than just what I was living. Like in the gay culture, sex and promiscuity and drugs and all of these things are very prevalent. Yeah. And I absolutely subscribed to that. I was preoccupied with sex and with like this feeling of I have to do this. And finally, when my testosterone levels and my estrogen levels had switched places, I no longer had that drive. I had this peace inside of me. I didn't have this like feeling that I had to do this, I had to do that. I finally felt like I now own myself. I'm not performing for anyone any longer. I'm not falling into like have tos or need tos. I'm just finally doing what feels right inside of me, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
So now I guess because now you're out as
trans.
Trans.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah,
right?
That's
you say
right.
you're
Yeah.
out as
I'm trans.
But
I came out as trans.
Do you still get? Are people now? Obviously, do you get a lot of people that they don't understand? Like,
yeah.
What would you?
Oh, yeah.
What would you tell people that maybe aren't familiar with it or don't have anybody that they know that's going through that? Like, how would, in a perfect world, what would be the approach for someone to say?
Like, if people want to ask me questions, I am so happy to answer their questions. I feel like them having questions and looking and not understanding and having those questions, but then never asking, they stay in a space of wondering, of not knowing. And in that space, I feel like a lot of fear can come up because as humans, our brains want to fill in the blanks. So whatever it looks like, our brains are going to fill in those blanks. And a lot of times it's negative.
Yeah.
So I would prefer people to ask me if they are like, hey, so what's the deal? I would happily sit down and speak with them and as long as it's in a respectful way and they're not trying to be funny for their friends or that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
It's one to try to understand,
Yes.
not to
Not
poke,
mock.
not mock, poke fun of, whatever.
Absolutely.
Because you've always been very open with me about like, I mean, I've had, again, I like to ask questions to understand it.
Absolutely.
You know, even it's not my, like what I go through or what I'm doing on a daily, but I like to understand people. I like to understand
Right.
why or what has happened in their life to bring them to this conclusion or to bring them to this place. And you've always been very open with me about it.
I feel like the only way to change things is to have conversations. Like when I was attacked, that brought a new conversation to the table for a lot of people that would not have spoken about that.
Yeah.
And suddenly there was a conversation of like, do I agree with this? How do I feel about this? And more people came to like support me and say, you know, I'm not gay. I don't know anything about your lifestyle, but someone hurting you is not okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, it's a conversation that gets to be, you know, that people get to discuss and not shy away from not be afraid of, because I'm still figuring it out for myself. So me having conversations helps me as well. But also, like, in a perfect world, everybody remembering that every single one of us as human beings, all we want is love. Mm-hmm. We want to be loved. We want to be able to have the right to live our lives the way that it works for us and not hurt anybody, not trespass on anyone. I don't go out of my way to push who I am on anyone. If anything, I like overcompensate by being overly nice, or you know what I mean? Just like trying to give them a good experience so that they don't look at trans people in a different light, if that makes sense. And the whole conversation happening right now with all of the radical trans activists and all of that makes me sick.
Really?
Because they say that they're speaking for trans people, yet they're saying things I absolutely disagree with and I'm not okay with. And they're misrepresenting what trans is to so many people that it affects me.
Like what, how, I mean, I guess I'm, again, trying to understand. What part are they saying that is, like that's the,
like
you feel like it's
trans
misrepresenting
women,
or?
Yeah, trans women in women's sports, absolutely wrong. It's horrible. I think that's disgusting. It's someone who, I mean, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's someone who couldn't perform the way they wanted to in their own sport. So they're going to now start competing in a sport where they feel that they'll excel. So I feel like the best solution is to have men's sports and women's sports and then an open division. And anybody who wants to compete in that is welcome. And there are several trans athletes that are saying, no, that's not fair. I don't want to compete against, and I'm like, but don't you see how that's a double standard? Yeah. These women who have been training their whole life and have become their best version and done something remarkable, you're erasing that. You're taking that away from them. And that is wrong on every single level.
Yeah.
It's despicable, and it shows little character. So the other thing is like, trans women are real women. No, they're not. Trans women are trans women. We have a vastly different experience of life than biological women, than real women. And the trans women that are getting upset by women saying, I'm a real woman, they are a real woman. You're a trans woman, you're not a real woman. You have never experienced a menstrual cycle. You cannot have children, no matter how crazy you are and think that once you start estrogen, you can have children. That's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
That it makes me crazy. And like them trying to push a completely bogus narrative on the rest of the world bothers me. I just want to be me and live my life and have a peaceful life and not be attacked or hurt or like have prejudice against me just because of, you know, I consider it a mental disorder. Being trans is a mental disorder. It's you were born in a body that doesn't feel like it's yours. You were born in a way that you feel alien in yourself. That's a mental thing. Like I was saying, I have more neural pathways back and forth in my brain than a typical male. I had more neural pathways in my brain than any of the women in my family when we did brain mapping.
Oh yeah, because you did.
You
did the brain mapping
long before.
I was going to say way before you started taking the estrogen and all that, right?
Yeah, and basically, like my brain works like a woman's brain. It's a man's brain, but it's closer to a woman's brain. I have more neural pathways. I process things differently than men do. So,
see, I found that's a very interesting take, that the brain function, the brain waves, whatever the brain signals are sending out, they can track those based on here's man's brain, here's women's brain.
Yeah.
And yes, technically you're, at the time in a man's body, but your brain is not.
Exactly.
I think that's one of those things that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. They just think, well, you're going crazy.
You just want to you want attention.
Yeah.
I don't want attention. That's the opposite of what I want. The less attention to who I am, the better. I'm not doing this to get more attention or anything, because the majority of the time it is not positive attention.
Well, and I think you're doing it to do what everybody else wants. They want to be happy. Yeah. Everybody wants to be happy and be at peace and be loved and
feel at home in their own body.
Yep. So why it matters so much for people, that's the part I always have a struggle with, is I think that yes, if you're doing something that's going to hurt or affect another person,
knock it off.
Knock it off.
Absolutely.
But if you are feeling more at peace eating lettuce every day of your life and saying that you're like, great, that doesn't affect me.
If you feel that you were meant to be a rabbit and you want to eat lettuce, awesome. I think that's wonderful. That's not my reality of you, but I honor your reality, that kind of thing. Like, I know that my reality of myself is not the reality of everyone around me. And I am okay with that. I'm good with that. I just want people to basically give me basic human respect. I feel like this whole world is about respect. You show respect, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to get the respect back. For a lot of people, when I was younger, I was the first gay person that they met. And they were like, you're not at all like I thought you would be. Like, you're not the kind of gay that is on the movies and this like flamboyant, like crazy person.
I think that's the thing though. Like, if people would honestly just take the time to ask questions, to talk to somebody that looks different, that feels different, that is different than them, which everyone is.
Absolutely.
Then we would honestly get to the bottom of a lot of the world's problems. But
I completely agree.
a lot of people just want to assume, or they hear a story on the news, which that's a big whatever.
Yeah.
And then they take that as fact, or they read a headline, and that's the story.
Yeah.
Rather than actually going and finding out what actually happened or what that person actually feels
Yeah.
and believes, sit down and have a conversation. Get off of your phone. Stop looking at your headlines for the day and actually interact with somebody. But we don't do that anymore.
I agree.
Nobody talks to anybody anymore.
I feel like our society is sick in the sense that there's very little connection, communication, interaction. People would rather be interacting with the device.
Yep.
And there's become this like fear in interacting with people. And it's unfortunate. People are the best part of this life. And so many people have the motto, oh, I hate people. And I feel like the best like replacement for that is I fear people. Because if you don't know someone, how could you possibly hate them?
Yep.
There's I can't remember the exact quote from Abraham Lincoln, but it's something like, no man could ever truly hate another man. He can only fail to fully know him, or something like that, which I think that's incredibly true.
Well, and that's the thing. I feel like most people, they don't understand somebody and therefore they hate them.
Yes.
You know, and
They fear them, so they choose to say they hate them instead of being honest and saying, I'm afraid of that person because I don't know what they're all about. I don't know, so I'm going to hate them, which is just, you're scared to get to know them. So there are people that I'm afraid of. And it doesn't mean that I hate them. It just means I'm afraid of them. But in a lot of experiences, I've had the chance to convert my fear into friendship. I've met people that I never in a million years would have thought I would be close friends with because of the way that they looked, tattooed all up and down. They look scary. They probably are gonna try and beat me up. And that's the furthest thing from who they are. They're gentle, they're kind, they're peaceful, they're loving, they go out of their way to help people. And it's just this judgment based on appearance.
Have you seen that? There was a recent, I don't even know, it was a YouTube or something, but it was a theater full of biker type
I
guys,
loved that.
and the only two seats are right in the middle, and these like random. It's
Everybody
so
left
interesting
except
to
for
watch.
that guy.
Yeah, some of them are just like whatever, but it's really like, again, they're making a judgment based on what they think.
Yes,
Not actually getting to know who those people are.
absolutely.
I love that video. It's so
I do
funny.
too. I love that guy is just like, what you looking at? And then they all stand up and applaud him.
Yep, as they should.
Yeah,
because he didn't
absolutely.
care. Like it truly is one of those moments where it's like, it doesn't matter that you look this way or you act this way. I mean, acting
Actions, yeah.
can affect somebody else, and that's where, again, I say
Absolutely. I
as
agree.
long as you're not affecting somebody else. But,
yes.
I don't know. It just
Appearance is a tricky thing. Like, for instance, Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg being like best friends. Who would have seen that coming? Because of what we assume we know about them.
Yep.
When in fact, I think that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
Like when you get along with somebody, what does it matter what they look like?
Yep. It truly is like the most odd pairing, but when they are together and they're doing like commentary or whatever, they're perfect.
They
and
are.
you know that they truly genuinely care about each other.
Exactly. Like that to me is such a shining example of we don't know. We have no idea what's going on inside of someone else. So the best thing to do is approach it with curiosity, not fear.
Yep.
And be open to being wrong. Be open to being wrong about someone just because you have a preconceived notion about them. There are a lot of, like, the homophobia thing kind of can go both ways. I was scared of straight guys for a long time after I was attacked the first time. And I wouldn't go to straight bars. I wouldn't go around straight people at all. The second time it happened, I kind of was like, well, it's not all straight guys that are doing this. It's hardly any of them. Like, it's just straight. It doesn't matter if it's straight guys, straight girls, gay guys beating me up, whatever. It's someone who they're internal. It's not my place to see them, judge them, and then act on that assumption.
See, it's that one bad apple ruins the bunch.
Exactly.
It's like everybody just assumes, oh, well, that person did it and they were this. Therefore, everyone must be this way.
Yeah.
That is that. You know, they do it with, police officers, but every
exactly.
Every job has a stereotype.
Yep.
I got asked all the time when I started doing hair, oh, are you gay?
Yes.
And I'm like, well, no, but like, does
no,
that
but
matter?
I don't care.
Like,
yeah.
I like doing hair. Like, this is enjoyable for me. But people would just assume, oh, he's doing hair. He must be
gay.
that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, people
that
again.
happened to my friend Carl. He was a professional dancer for a long time, and everybody assumed he was gay. And I was like, just because he's comfortable around gay guys and like doesn't get, all weird, doesn't mean he's gay. Yeah. He's just a good person. He's a cool person. He likes everybody. And it has nothing to do with his sexuality. I don't think that people take the time to separate sexuality from who a person is.
Yeah. Well, and I don't understand why sexuality has to be such a big player in it. Like,
I agree.
We don't ask, even pre all this stuff, we'd never walk up to somebody and be like, what was it like in the bedroom last night?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody ever asked that question.
Nobody.
Now all of a sudden it's like,
know.
oh, you're this? You do this in the bedroom. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares what you do in the bedroom?
Exactly.
Again, unless you're affecting somebody else in a negative way.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But
I had a guy say, I don't like gay people. And I said, why? And he's like, because they're always hitting on me. They're always trying to get me to be gay with them. And I was like, really? You? That's interesting, because I would never, ever. He's like, you probably want me. I'm like, have you seen you? And then look at me. Have you seen me? I clearly don't want you. No. But it's an interesting thing. Like, there's this level of ego with some people that they're like, oh, well, everybody wants me. And I'm like, no offense, but I'm not into guys that have 3 teeth or smell like you smell.
It's funny. I remember when I was in hair school, and this is the first gay man that I ever met and ever got to really have a conversation with, was this guy. His name was Larry. And I love Larry. He's amazing. But I remember one time we were going to go to a hair show out in California, and he had asked, we'd become friends, and he was like, if we go out to California, will you go to a gay bar with me? And that was, again, my first experience with
right.
And I
That's
was
like jumping into the deep end.
I was like, oh man. And my assumption was, I don't want to go there because what if everybody's looking at me?
Yeah.
And he goes,
and hitting
Mike,
on you. Yeah.
What happens when you would go to what you would consider a normal bar?
Yeah.
Does every girl stop and look at you? And I was being like, well, yeah.
Well, yeah, of course.
I mean, look
Have
at
you
me.
seen me?
But I was like, well, no. And he says, a gay bar is the same thing. Just because somebody is gay doesn't mean that you're a man and they're
They
going to be
want
all
you.
over you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he says, honestly, who cares? If somebody is looking at you, doesn't mean you're going home with them.
Exactly.
It means they think you're attractive. And don't you want people to think you're attractive?
Right.
Think of it as a compliment. And I was like,
Absolutely.
and I was like, okay, I'll go. We never
Yeah.
ended up going, but it changed my whole outlook on how because again, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what it's going to be. No, it's not. Don't be a dummy.
Right.
So I again, and had I not had that conversation with him, had I not asked the questions, had I not, I still would have been the ignorant person that wasn't willing to find out. Ask the questions, have conversations, talk to people that are different than you.
Absolutely.
I think that's the way that we become successful as a society, is by helping understand everyone's, again, you don't have to agree with it, but you don't
Exactly.
have to be mean about it.
Exactly.
You just have to understand it and be like, okay, I understand where they're coming from. And truly 99.9% of the time, you'll find out that that person is actually a good person.
Absolutely.
And they have a good heart and they want the same thing that you want. They want to
Absolutely.
be loved, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
They want to be loved. They want to be respected. They want to find peace and happiness in their own life.
Yeah.
But we have this weird thing that we think the only way that somebody can be happy is by doing what I did.
Yes.
Because
exactly.
what I did worked for me.
Yeah.
And so
it's
it'll
going to work for
you.
you. Yeah. Exactly.
So
I
don't know.
agree with you completely. That's kind of my philosophy is approach everything with love and openness
Yep.
and alleviate the fear. Like, if there's fear involved, turn that fear into excitement. Find someone that you might be afraid of and do service for them. Treat them kindly. Drop your defense so that they can. By us being vulnerable, we create a space where other people can be vulnerable as well. And in vulnerability, that's where we find connection. That's where humans all have something in common. We're all vulnerable. We all have that fear. We all have that what if scenario in our heads. And instead of saying what if, say, hey, what about, like turn that fear into curiosity.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Well, we're close to done.
Okay.
And I can't thank you enough for coming
Thank you.
and spending the time with me here. Because
My
I think honestly, like, you're one of those people that I think you understand how to treat people in this world. And I think that a lot of people can use you as an example to really show up for somebody in love. And so is there anything, like, what would be your final piece of advice to the people that are listening or watching?
I guess it would be to find the beauty in everything, to look for the good and stop focusing on the bad, to find the love for other people that you don't understand and practice forgiveness a lot with yourself, because when you forgive yourself, it makes it so much easier to forgive other people. And lay down the baggage. Don't hold on to things. Don't take on other people's challenges. Love them through them, but don't take it on yourself.
Awesome. Well, Blaire,
Thank you so much.
you are done.
I'm so
Your hair
excited.
is beautiful.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you
I
for
really
sharing.
love it.
I truly love you. I thank
love you
you.
too.
I
Thank
can't
you.
express it enough. So
I'm grateful for your friendship. It means a lot.
thanks.
Thanks. All right.
That's it.
Yay!
We're done.